Well, howdy. It is Monday, May 6th. This is the first Monday meeting of the Timex Sinclair online user group, as we are loosely affiliated. We are joined by 2/3 of the Albuquerque user group today. Possibly, oh, wait a minute. Oh, the Albuquerque user group is 4 people. That's right. We're joined by half
Oh
the
my
Albuquerque
gosh.
user group. Maybe it'll get up to 3/4.
Well, I count as two. I'm just.
Oh, you count as 2? Whoops.
Yeah.
Adam
Ryan
is
is
the
actually all
most
the
important member
Albuquerque
of
group.
the Albuquerque user group, being the one most experienced with the Timex Sinclair 2068, surpassing all others, including Carl and Ryan and John. um, we don't have a real heavy agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit about the TS Pico and things happening there. I have this really interesting story from one of our regulars, Rich Burt, who's not here tonight. But I figured I'd, regale y'all with the story from his email. But before I do that, Paul, I'm gonna spotlight you real quick. Don't flip out too much. Don't do too many changes. All right. So that thing behind you, is it the last one in captivity? That SCLD for the Timex Sinclair 2000? Paul, I think your audio might be off or something.
I don't need it.
Okay, you don't need audio.
Well, I have audio. No, I don't need to. I don't need the chip.
Oh, okay. So you would like somebody to take this chip off your hands
Well, if they're interested, there's a socket that goes with it.
and the socket too. Okay, good. And I see the date code on the socket is March of 1985. Wow. Okay. All right.
That's something I'd be interested in because I have a board that I'm pretty sure that's what's wrong with it.
Is that you, Joe?
Yep.
Sorry. Oh, okay. All right. Well, you know the routine.
You got my email, right? Or is your email still messed up?
Still messed up. Cannot get in. Door's
Okay.
locked.
You're not receiving email, Paul?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm SOL.
Wow. Well, Joe, do you still have a telegram office down the road?
I'll dig up a rotary dial and
A rotary dial. There we go. Yeah.
Well, if Joe
Dave,
wants it, it's his.
Well, I want to make sure I understand. Like, is that a prototype or that's what they're all labeled, or what's the deal with that?
I don't know anymore. I had a
yeah.
small quantity of them. Most of them got used for something. That's what's left.
I think that's the right one, but I don't know off the top of my head.
When you say the right one, you mean what?
Oh, meaning the one that went into the production machines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Although I'm kind of confused because it has it says Timex PT, which would be Timex Portugal. But the manufacturing date is the 45th week of 1983, which is about right. I think that's I don't know, September-ish, August or something like that. I don't want to open my 2068 right now and find out.
Hello, David. If you see 2000 printing on chip, that is TS SCLD version. If you see 2068, is the Portugal version.
Okay. Okay. Well, there we go. David, you have a question about Mira Pascal. What is Mira Pascal? David Solly? No, wait a sec. Okay.
As far as I can understand, it's just another language for the spectrum.
Okay. I mean, like for the 48K spectrum?
Yeah, for the 48 spectrum, it goes along with high South Pascal and high Soft C and Mega Basic and Forth and such like languages, but this is another one for the Spectrum.
Yeah. And you're looking for a manual for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it can
Alright.
be downloaded from a library, but they don't have the manual for it.
Manual. Okay. Okay. Gosh, I wonder what that looks like for. Oh, and there's a Fortran? How bizarre. Did you know about that, David?
Right. Oh
That they
yeah,
get
there's
a Fortran for the Spectrum?
yeah.
Wow. Well, the only thing missing is Python then.
Yeah, and maybe Kobo.
Well, yeah, right. COBOL details.
Details, retails, eh?
When you get 132 columns, you'll get COBOL.
Oh, dear Lord. I'll break out my deck writer printer and my green bar paper. Okay. So,
David,
yeah.
I sent you, I left you a message on the IO board
Yeah.
about the package of software
Yeah.
and box. I threw in a printout that looks like it's been revised for SkyPlot for the 1000, I believe.
Okay. Cool. Was this a thing that Fred did?
I can't recall off the top of my head, and I've already packaged it. So once I get your address, I can send it off.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna put it. Can you read the chat? I'll put it in the chat. I'll put my address in the chat.
Let me get ready to do what I got to do to cross-reference it for saving purposes.
Okay. Well, that would explain why, I emailed it to you. I emailed you my address, but you probably did not receive it.
Okay, let me. Where's the fart? There's the farting button. I'm still a quasi neophyte with this thing.
It's just like a real in-person user group meeting where it's just, random random shit popping up.
Okay, now where's my
Living
software?
the experience.
Save this.
All right.
Got it.
Okay, Paul. Thank you. All right. I want to tell a little story here. We have a regular attendee, Rich Burt, and he lives up in Canada, somewhere between Niagara Falls and Toronto. I'm not entirely sure. And Rich has had a 2068 since forever, or 1983. And he purchased this accounting package back. It's not entirely clear to me when he bought it, but he bought this accounting package called the Wiz, and it came on tapes back in the day, right? And he also, when he got his 2068, he bought a Larkin disk system. And I think that Rich was probably also a member of the Toronto Timex Sinclair user group rather, which was a really, really active user group. They did a really good newsletter for a long time. And there was a guy named George Chambers, who was also a member, who did a lot of software, digging for the Larkin and the 2068, wrote a bunch of articles about it. So anyway, back to Rich Burt. Rich Burt has had a small business selling high performance car parts since 1972. Still going on today. So that's 52 years that he's been doing that. In 1981, his wife won a ZX81 computer at an open house where she worked, Nortel. And that's what got him started on the computers, right? So when the 2068 came out in 83, he couldn't get one at the store in his town in Ontario, Canada. Ontario's a province, like a state in the United States. So he says he was determined to have one. So he drove down to Knighted Computers in Fulton, New York, which is near where the IBM headquarters is, is down near Binghamton, sort of. So it's he had to drive across almost the entire width of New York State, probably 300 and some odd miles from where he lived, to purchase it there, and he got some software too. So got the Wiz, converted it to work on his 2068 with Larkin, and has been using it ever since. He sent me an email, I think in February, to say that he'd been busy doing something and updating his accounting for January in the Wiz. And he made some modifications. I'm going to try to open this. Oh, good, I can open it in preview. He made some modifications to the code. So like he said, to work in Larkin. And I'm just going to try to show you some of these. Try to show you some of this stuff. I'm going to share my screen. That's it, right there. Okay, so here's this little code snippet, and I will tell you that that print number 4 is one of these key signifiers of Larkin. Larkin used a randomized user 100, or once you'd initialized it, print number 4 before any of its commands, before it loaded or saved or anything like that. So there was some extra typing, and this is partly ties into Bob Swoger. Bob Swoger wrote this program called Logical to help folks use their Larkin system, because you had to do this print number 4 load or print number 4 save or whatever. So this is apparently a piece of the code. Let me see if I can switch, and will it be successful? How about this one? Oops, that's the same one. There we go. How about this one? There we go. So this is, again, more of this code that this person, so let me speak about the other half of this. This program was written by a guy named Steve Cermak from Michigan, and it came out in, let's see, when did this come out? About 1984. Okay. It was a small business accounting thing. It had payroll, inventory, accounts receivable, accounts payable, and general ledger modules, and it could print in 64 columns. And so it used TAS-wide to do the 64 column mode. So I've been trying to track down Steve, because I want to get Steve's opinion of somebody using his software for 40 years now. Just astounding to me that somebody would be still using it for regular business use after all this time. And not Ryan, Adam, you asked this question years ago. I feel like, who uses their computer? Who uses it for, business use? Does anybody still, use it? Rich still uses it on a monthly, at least, basis. It's amazing to me.
And he sent you the updated Larkin version of the program?
I'm going to ask him to. I don't know if he can.
Because now I'll be able to start using it.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
All of us who have payroll and, accounts receivable and, those other needs, inventory, we can use that. I can use it for my inventory of, circuit ports.
For me, I'm wondering, because I noticed that it was called the Wiz Accounting Suite. What else was part of it?
So the modules were payroll, inventory, accounts receivable, accounts payable, and then general ledger, which is, you know, sort of core. If you know anything about accounting, that's kind of the core thing for accounting. That's where all the action takes place.
And all of this was gonna, like, without his every other person was using this from tape strictly.
Yeah, I mean that's the way it was sold, was for
Right.
tape. And you know,
I'm
to
just thinking of it like having your business running on that when tape recording was iffy, you know?
uh-huh.
Right.
No, but if you delete the print number 4, you can use the same syntax in the TS Pico also. You don't need to
Right.
to add nothing. Works directly.
Right. So, and I think, and that's actually Rich's goal, is to convert it to work with his Pico. I'm going to share this because there's actually a review of the Wiz.
Written by Rich.
No, written by Bill Farabee. Right. Written by Bill Farabee. Bill was pretty active in you know, writing articles and doing he did some graphic stuff. So these are some screen captures of included as well, which is just amazing to me. So it was $70 for the cassettes, and I think Rich said it's like 4 cassettes. I don't know if Bill mentions that in here. But yeah, you know, and that, you know, the TASWide software was available from Zebra at the time. And so I've done a little digging, you know, to try to figure out if Steve's still around and stuff. And it looks like Steve's probably in his mid to late 50s. And you know, based on what little information I found on the internet, you know, probably still with us. And so my hope is to get Steve on here so that we can grill him and get Rich on at the same time and see if I can get someone's head to explode.
That's only as a comment. Here in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, one store used the Timex Sinclair to print the invoices on those years in a continuous paper. And these people use a cassette tape, a standard cassette tape, for 60 minutes or 90, and 1 cassette per customer.
Really?
Yes, these people put the cassette on the machine, then print the invoice, and then save the program on tape.
What?
And
What?
yes.
Was this retail? Like you would go in and buy something off the shelf? And
no, the reason is the people has a history for each customer on tape directly, and put the as a name of the program, put the number of the invoice. Very simple. Just only not review or forward the cassette.
I'm not disputing the simpleness. I'm just shocked.
Yes.
So
yes,
how many tapes do you think they had?
I see on the office around 30 approximately.
Only 30 customers?
Yes, it's a small store. It's not a big store.
Okay.
But they sell building construction material, and many people, for example, has accounting with many people. I don't know, get painting or get different parts for the house, like a big store, but in a small place.
That's small.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
For the people that collect the items and pay 1 month, monthly the total, they print the invoice and save it on tape.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes, yeah. The reason to use that Sinclair and also the printer is because the another solution was write the invoice in with the hand.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and the problem is the typing, the letters. Many people does not can read if you not have a good quality letter, high quality, and they'll solve the problem with this.
So did they use the 2040 printer? Is that the
No. Use an Epson printer, 12
okay?
inches. Yeah,
Okay,
just a
so
professional printer.
full size paper.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Very professional because in the second year they print the paper in a printer company, and they have the logo on paper and yeah,
Oh.
overprint with text mode invoices.
Yeah. Okay.
Really very happy with this. A simple program, you don't have a disk storage, you don't have nothing, just only the Timex and the cassette tape.
And a box of tapes.
Exactly.
Wow. How long did
Oh,
they use this?
approximately 5 years, approx.
Wow.
And the problem is not the computer. The problem was because the law changed here in Argentina, and after that, you need to invoice a regular with the standard format invoices, just it's not just in paper or without any
Oh,
control of the.
so you had to use standardized invoicing.
Exactly.
Interesting.
When you can imprint manually, of course, that's a good solution.
Wow. That is crazy.
Yeah, another reason is because the customer pay cash. Okay, you send the invoices just only to complete the transaction, no?
And so if the law hadn't changed, they would have used it as long as possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
That's only comment. Yeah, for the use for the 2068 in a
yeah,
standard version.
yeah. I mean, I remember, this what was like 84 to 89 or something. Oh, your mic just switched off. Gustavo, you just switched your audio off.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Yes. No. After that, they buy a PC, just a regular PC, and then move to the IBM or XT or whatever
Okay.
in the 90s.
Okay.
Hmm.
Wow.
Well, I'm thinking about comparing this to Rich and his use of the Whiz. You know,
Yeah.
the tax service up in Canada probably has a special line with his name on it, and he
What?
checks it, and then they know what program he's using.
Well, no. So Rich mentioned that he, the program originally, as it was written for U.S. folks, right, and it would have local and state tax, and he changed that to PST, which is provincial, and GST, which government. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've paid attention to what GST meant in Canada. But yeah, his little chart of accounts there shows PST and GST. And actually, so Jeff in the chat just reminded me about some saddish news that Zilog, in case you weren't aware, Zilog has officially ended production. Well, it will end. The final, they put out a call for final orders of the Z80. So as of what year? It's 2024. After 2024 or 2025, whatever the official date is, you will not be able to get fresh Z80s. And what you'll have to do is go cannibalize those 1000s that you're using to hold your doors open.
Yes,
But go ahead.
No, sorry. No, I see the notice that the end of life of the production of the silicon, the silicon base of the C80
Yes.
is not more. Apparently, it's a manufacturing issue. I don't know if the printer was gone or whatever, or maybe the nanoseconds or the nanoseconds, sorry, the nanometers that use on the silicon chip maybe is not more used because this oldest. Now we are using 10, 5 or less nanometers in printing.
Yeah, well, you know, they're still producing 555s, and I don't know about 741s, but you know, there's a bunch of sort of jelly bean TTL that's still in production.
Hmm.
So no, I think it's just a question of, well, actually, so Zilog got bought out by a company called Littlefuse, and you know, I suspect that they're just not making enough money for Littlefuse anymore, and so that's why, you know, that's why it would be
Or,
discontinued.
or another reason maybe is the IP, because it's 50 years since the launching.
Well,
Intellectual property maybe is an issue.
Are you
the
thinking
ARM
about
chip is still selling like gangbusters, and it beats the snot out of it.
the which chip?
The ARM,
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, everything is ARM now. You know, this is like what was that movie with Sylvester Stallone, set in the future, where everything was Taco Bell? Everything's ARM now. um I don't know. I mean, Gustavo, the in theory,
Was it Demolition Man you're thinking of?
thank you. Yes, Demolition Man. In the future, everything is Taco Bell. The patent on the Z80 would have run out back in, say, the late 80s or early 90s. Patents are only good for about 17 years in the United States. I don't know. I think that there's a company called Rochester Electronics that picks up stuff like this. And Rochester Electronics picked up the 6800 a few years back. Now, granted, a 6800 from Rochester Electronics is something like $150. I don't know that anybody's going to want to pay $150 for a Z80 when we can just go get them out of a 1000 or a ZX81.
Well, actually, then what is the reason that they make
Made
them?
by Zilog or different brands, SCS or NSE?
Just Zilog. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anybody's second sourcing it anymore.
Yeah, exists in Argentina. Now we have Toshiba, SGS,
Yeah.
Italy, and some NSE. But Zilog is not more here.
So, Adam, you were going to say?
I was going to say, what would be the purpose of Rochester selling these 6800 CPUs? And you mean 6800 or 68000? Because the 6800
No,
is not very,
6800.
because that was not used very often. So
No.
yeah.
pinball machines.
Pinball
All right,
machines? Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of game consoles that had it too. The APF
Yeah.
had it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a couple small computers. The SWTPC used the 6800 and then went to the 6809. But yeah. Yeah. So put your final orders in. The announcement I saw said that you can put them in, there's no guarantee they'll be accepted for the final run, as it were. So TS Pico updates. Ricardo and Gustavo and Ryan and Joe are all, and Jeff has taken a breather, are all working in some capacity on trying to wrap up updates to the firmware so that we can push it out and folks will be able to do all manner of things. Joe's been working on some 3D printed cases that look amazing. Ryan is starting to do some digging into like a Norton Commander-ish equivalent, and then he has more even exciting plans for other things. And I'll let Ryan talk about his, you know, exciting plans. So our aim for the software, the firmware updates, is probably mid summer is my guess, June-ish, just based on what's left to get done, what's left to fix, and make things a little easier to manipulate. One of the coolest things in my mind is that Ricardo has written a program that will take a doc file on the SD card and load it into the flash or the SRAM, depending upon what you want to do, on the Pico, and then let you reboot and run that thing. So like Flight Simulator was a ROM that was available for the cartridge available for the 2068, and he's like I said, he's written this thing, and you can put the doc file on the card. You don't even have to worry about trimming off the extra couple of bytes at the front that makes it a doc file. If it's ends with a DCK, he figures out how to clean that up for you and move it into the flash, which is really, really nifty. So you'll be able to customize your Pico in a great many ways. And then there's just other optimizations that we're working on, one of which is just how it loads programs from the SD card to make it a little more efficient and reliable, and also so that not every error message it gives is the JIO error. I can't remember exactly what it is, but right now, if there's an error message, you only get one error message. That's the IO error. It's not always the right error, but that's what it is. He's done some stuff to address that as well. And then Jeff's Pico video board, pretty much nailed down. Somebody, who was it that was asking? Was it Ryan? You were asking about adding scan lines to the output.
At least that, but obviously it'd be nice to have some of the filters that like MAME has for CRT emulation.
Oh, okay. I haven't used MAME in a long time, so I don't know what's there.
Well, you can just for various games, you can emulate the different CRT
effects.
I don't know all the jargon, but like you've got your shadow masks and phosphors.
Oh, right.
So some games are made to. There's videos. Adam might have still the link handy that I sent. Videos showing how like the artwork was done for how it'll come out on the CRT playing. We talked a couple meetings back about like the artifacting colors and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we saw that demonstration with one of the 2068 demos was doing something like that. And so sometimes it's necessary. So that's why MAME has it, because sometimes it's necessary for it to look right. And there's even like ones for if the monitor is vertical versus horizontal, that kind of thing. Because those will line up differently. And so yeah, I applied those to a couple of the games in my RetroPie setup to make them look a little more vintage, because if nothing else, but it can make the graphics look more correct for what the artist intended. That was one video I'd seen, was the artist would have he'd have his editing software with the pixels blown up, but he would have it at real size on a CRT monitor, and he would just adjust the pixels and colors till it came out the way it should look. So it would look almost ridiculous in terms of pixels. Like especially like I remember one, it was like a skeleton, so it's very minimal pixel wise. But when the coloring and the placement of the pixels, and it comes out very convincingly. And so if you don't have these shaders that emulate that, you get the blockiness. Now, for something like the you know, Spectrum kind of video, it's maybe not quite as critical, but certainly it's some basic ones might be kind of a nice to have.
Cool. Well, that both the the files that you would need to run off circuit boards and the firmware are on the GitHub. I'll make sure that the link goes into the meeting notes. Yeah, so just put it all out there for us, and you know, go have at it. Right, what's this thing you posted, Adam?
That was the video that Ryan asked me to look for
Okay.
about, it's called 30 most mind-blowing game examples of retro art. That's the one you're talking about, Ryan? I think.
Oh, well, that's the recent one. There was another one I sent you some time back.
Yeah.
I might could find that.
Yeah, I don't have that handy.
Okay.
I'll see if I can find that one.
Okay. Rich, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Can you hear us okay? I think his video looks a little jumpy. All right. Yeah, so those are the things that that I know are going on. Oh, Adam, you asked about updates to the Timex Sinclair website.
Oh, well, I have a question about the Pico still.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So how's the like, does it still reset all of the time?
Does it
Like-
still reset all of the time?
Yeah, I mean, it always seems like you had to reset it to get it to work correctly. Like, do you know what I mean? You have to reset the Pico.
So you would get like that JIO error, and then you would reset based on that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, in that is not always the truth, but that's the error that gets sent or gets displayed. And so that's one of the things we're working on, of, you know, displaying a more accurate error message that does not lead you to think that the Pico has taken a dirt nap.
I see.
Yeah, and so sometimes when you get that JIO error, the Pico has not gone away. It's just that's the only error message it had. Yeah, and it, you know, like you said, it needs to be reset all the time. Yeah.
No, for example, let me explain why the J error exists. In case, for example, when you read a blog or you exchange the data between the Pico and the PC, in case that exists any CRC error, I print the J error, IO error. It's a generic error. That's why sometimes when you receive this error, is because one of the communication information failed. Okay, I don't have the standard CRC error on the error list and the Timex ROM. That's why many times the end is the final, the same J error IO. This is one of the explanation of that. For example, if I read a 0 and missing the value or whatever, and the checksum fail, okay, I print the error. The situation is to avoid any corrupt information stored on the SD or load wrong information at the machine. I'm very conservative on that. Okay, if pass correctly. If not, error J.
Yeah. So if you make a typo in a TPI command and the Pico doesn't like the command,
no soup for you.
No soup for you, right? I mean, you know, it doesn't care internally. You know, if it doesn't recognize the command, it doesn't care internally. But you know, the message that you get back is that it's decided to take a dirt nap, and yeah. So the, you know.
So speaking of that, is there some way to maybe get more, granular with the errors that it sends back or prints out.
Yep. So yeah, you joined a little bit
Right.
later.
Like,
Yeah, and so I was just talking about that, is that among the updates that we're working on is better error reporting. By Jeff. So instead of, and one of the things that Gustavo said is that his code waits for messages from the Pico, and if if it doesn't get a message in a certain time, it kind of times out and says that that's an error unto itself. And in that case, it may actually be that the Pico kind of went under the grass. But other times, it's just that the Pico is sending an error message and it's not jiving with what the what the ROM is expecting. And so, Adam, actually, yes, TPI verbose is a new command in the new firmware. And if you
No, not really.
No, really, it is. And if you issue that command, like when you load a file, in addition to getting the OK message that you get, you'll also get a line of text up at the top of the screen after the load was successful or not. If it didn't work, whatever happened, you'll get something at the top of the screen. So it's good in the interactive mode. It's not great if you have a program that like loads data or something, because there'll be this extra text on the screen if you set it in verbose mode. But yeah, I'm pretty sure verbose was the command that Ricardo.
I was just making a joke because if you play Zork or Starcross, one of
For
those
maximum
intercom games-
verbosity, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
The best part is all those modifications are made in the Python side.
Yeah.
That is one of the best for this solution. You don't need to change the ROM.
Yeah, one of the amazing things about Gustavo's ROM is that he wrote it to be really, really flexible, and just whatever you say, there's only the two commands that it will actually intercept, and that's the TPI SD card and the TPI tape, right, Gustavo?
Exactly. I detect those commands, and the rest is passed directly to the Pico.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that Ricardo is going to sort of leverage in the code to let people write their own commands, is that Gustavo's ROM doesn't care what gets sent. The Pico has its sort of reserved list of words like load and save and verbose and whatever, but you can use a word that's not one of those things, and if it if you as a programmer have defined a new word in the list, it'll see that and intercept and go off and run your little MicroPython code that's on the Pico itself.
Yes, the new version of the TPI commands is a subset of the original TPI commands. I created those commands 40 years ago. And in this case, we only isolate the save and load, the storage commands, and not the rest, because it's due to complexity and also the capacity of the TS Pico. You need more capacity to support the full set of the commands. But as the Pico is in a storage solution, the best way is to support the storage commands: save, load, verify, and merge. And also I add some extra commands to memory mapping or whatever. It's a memdoc or memboot commands. But in theory, you have all the set of the command possible, and the rest you can add or in this release or in the future releases. It's not close to the number of commands. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be really, 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 really flexible what you can do, add on to it. Yeah. You could
I
even
know I
add
got a
your
couple
own
of,
verbose feedback. Go ahead, Carl.
I was gonna say, I got a couple of things. I don't know, I don't know where in the agenda we are, but
We're in the freeform portion.
oh, okay. Well, then that. So starting with you, David, since I could see everybody on the screen, I sent you one of the 1510s, and I don't know if you
Yes.
had a chance to play with that yet. I kind of wanted to.
I'm still I still have a couple mods to do to my 1000. I have one of those little ZX8 CCBs that I need to apply to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Okay.
I have I don't know if you remember this thing. There was a company called Cradle, or no, they were called K2. They came out with a keyboard called the Cradle, and it had these kind of let me find it and share it. It had these little chiclety keys, and a big heavy metal case. This is back in the day when you could get any kind of case from I think it was shoot
Hammond.
I think it was Hammond that made these
Mhm.
cases. All right, let me just share my. Do I have pictures on this? Oh, cool! I do have pictures on this page. Okay, so I have this keyboard that I want to stick my 1000 in, and when you see it, you'll see why. To me, this is like the Ne Plus Ultra, the ultimate 1000 keyboard expansion, right? So there's this crappy little black and white photo over here. I'm gonna zoom in. So this thing, well, you can see the size of the power supply, right?
Right.
And it's got these funky little kind of chiclety keys, full size space bar. So you can get, for instance, you can get the graphics or the function mode with a single key press over here on the left, and the arrow keys across the bottom, and the edit actually with just one key press instead of edit on the 1000. I think is shift 1, and the arrows are shift 5, 6, 7, 8,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and delete is 0, I think. So here's another one that somebody stuck an elephant sticker on. Sort of give you this.
And the one you were just showing us, was that yours?
No, this is from eBay. I took some pictures off of eBay.
So you do have one though.
But I do have one, right? And let's see if I can show you and so right, and it was, like I said, this was the Ne Plus Ultra. Okay, 2 expansion slots, a joystick port. There's the regular expansion bus, and there's a color computer in the background. Another photo, somebody that has modified this one with a monitor jack. I'm going to bet that little red push button is a reset switch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's the inside of this thing. 64K
What
of
about an
RAM.
on-off switch for the thing?
No, why would you have an on-off switch? It's on your power strip.
You just never turn it off.
You never turn it off. Exactly. 64K of RAM. These 2 ribbon cables at the top of the screen, they connect to the keyboard. This ribbon cable at the bottom of the screen connects to the expansion bus portion. And what you do is you take your 1000 and you just plug the whole thing into that little slot. This thing on the right hand side is one of the expansion cards. I think in this one it's the parallel expansion card. There was also an RS-232 card that was announced. I don't know if it was ever made. So here's one without an expansion card. The expansion card's in it.
That looks like a lot of circuitry there.
Doesn't
I
it?
don't know if there's a schematic for
Oh
that.
God, no.
Even looks like there's a PAL or a GAL or a PAL chip on there.
Yep. So I think it has, like I said, I think it has 64K of RAM. Oh, and it's got a little notch for channel 3 or 4. So
You'd
yeah,
have to
I'm gonna
stick a spudger in that hole.
uh-huh. So I'm gonna stick my
Well-
1000 inside this case.
I
Okay.
like the idea of you just put the whole thing inside.
The whole thing.
Close the lid. I'm probably getting parts of it wrong, but sort of like I'm thinking Star Trek motion picture. Is this like V'ger? Anyway,
Original motion picture.
but
Yeah. I think
the whole idea that you would have it inside this other computer, and then somebody comes along at some point and lifts it up and goes, "Oh."
Well, isn't that what
That was-
Daleks were on Doctor Who? I mean, there was like a little creature inside the big
Yeah,
contraption.
so that you've enhanced it, and then in theory you might have some other thing that you stuck that inside of.
I don't know if
Huh.
I can get a larger enclosure to stick the whole thing into, to, you know, 2 layers of enclosure, but yeah.
Yeah, I know I've got a couple. I bought a couple of Hammond cases, you know, instrument cases that are slanted like that.
Yeah.
Because I was going to put your keyboard in there because I got 2 of your keyboards, but I need to, you know, I need to nibble out the metal to make the keyboard go through the. Because one was kind of expensive. I think it was like 70, 80 bucks.
Yep.
It has the wood grain sides on it,
Oh,
actual wood sides on it.
yeah.
And then I bought a little smaller one that was just metal. Right,
Yeah.
that one was like maybe $30 or $40, but I mean, still not really cheap. But yeah, I do have something similar, but I wasn't gonna. Obviously, I don't have that circuitry.
Yeah.
But that would be nice to, you know, maybe take some high-res screenshots of that or pictures of that, so we might be able to reverse engineer it at some point or
Oh, okay.
create a schematic from it. You know, but you need to see the traces, and unfortunately, with all the chips in there, that might be a little difficult. But at least if you get a picture of the backside too, that kind of helps because there shouldn't be anything blocking, unless there's traces on the top side that are covered. But anyway, plus the gal chip, if you can maybe
Mhm.
see what that is, and we can obviously read that and see, you know,
Can
so
you?
we can
Okay.
get a backup of whatever. Well, I mean, most of the times, I think some of those you can lock them where they can't be read,
Okay.
just because, you know, people, you know, and didn't want you to know what was how that was, you know. But I don't think this low production thing probably did that. I don't. Maybe they did. I don't know. But it'd be nice to still try, I guess.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
cool.
yeah. So yeah, but I do have my 15 my Carl Miles
So you-
1510.
Yeah.
It looks great. I will tell you
So
that.
you haven't done it, haven't used it yet. So okay, that's cool.
But I love the idea of it, and it's just so, you know, so nifty. It reminds me, by the way, that there's somebody on one of the ZX81 groups on Facebook who is working on a circuit board that plugs into the back of the, you know, 81/1000 that lets you use alternate ROMs without opening your computer, right? So we know that, for instance, there was a 4th ROM, and there was this thing called ASMIC, which was a machine language programming environment. And you had to open your computer and replace the
Right.
ROM inside, right? Well, he's you know, got this little extender board that lets you, you know, plug in probably a you know, a modern EEPROM, and then using some switches pick out which thing you're using. He's got it working with the ASMIC. So I'm hoping he'll make that available, and we can play with it, because that sounds
Cool.
like fun
Yeah.
too. You know.
Yeah, and like I said, eventually I'd like to, you know, make cartridges that would be ROM, you know,
Yeah.
ROM cartridges. But
Yeah.
you know, we'll get to that bridge when we get there. But okay,
Well,
cool.
And 3D printed cases.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was gonna, you know, Joe, I know it sent me a thing that he wanted the design files, and I need to actually send those to him. So I haven't really, I kind of forgot about it, Joe, because I've had some things going on here in the last month or so. So, you know, don't, I now that I'm seeing you, and that kind of reminds me, right, that I need to send you those design files, so that, because you were gonna try and make some 3D printed cases for, I guess, the 1510. And I don't know, I think you're still probably even interested in one of those, right? Because I don't think you have one. So that would be obviously the best of both worlds if you actually had one, because then you can actually make sure what you print out will fit right. Plus there's some design changes that need to be done on that thing, and I think he did that in what you use, David,
Easy
EasyCAD,
EDA?
or yeah, I think he used it in there. So I went in there and kind of tried to change some traces and modify the schematic and make it try and do another PCB, but you know, he's got bus lines in there and everything. So I don't know how you define that and how it relates to making the PCB. So I really kind of, you know, I need to spend more time learning that. But you know, maybe if I give you the design files, you can look at it, and it shouldn't be hard to change. I mean, realistically, it's just a couple of, you know, I want A15 to go to pin 1 instead of going to right now it's a 5-volt line. So
Yeah.
that's why I have to mod the boards, right? And same thing with the interface board, the way he designed it, for whatever reason, I don't know, Claudius, you know, he reversed the A15 and A14 lines
Oh,
going into the circuitry. So yeah, eventually, I mean, it works, but when we're trying to do our mods, it's backwards, right? The logic doesn't pan out right, because you know, some of the outputs of the chip are
yeah.
coming from the wrong address lines. Even though the circuitry is correct, he's just got A15 and A14 going into the wrong pins. So,
Okay.
you know, that would be a fairly easy change. You know, hey, I don't want A15 to go to this chip, this pin. I want it to go to this pin, you know, and vice versa. But like I said, changing this, you know, I could just probably edit the PCB and maybe manually do that, but that's not really, I think, the best way to do it. We need to change the schematic and then have it recreate a PCB from the schematic, which I think is how he did it. But anyway, so that's the Joe thing with the, I need to get to the design files. Maybe I'll send them to you as well, David.
Yeah.
Since you use that and you know how to manipulate it, and you know, we can talk offline about what needs to be changed so that the next run of boards, if anybody wants to make them, you know, they will be you know, it should be mod free, right? They would not have to have any of the mods done to them, which would be preferably for me, because that's just extra labor time, right, to cut the boards. And
Make
plus,
those
you know,
little
he doesn't have
rods.
the notches, right? He doesn't have the notches cut out for the keyways.
Oh,
And there's some solder mass, like I said, that's over the expansion port on his interface PCB that I have to use
clean
a
off.
Dremel
Yeah.
tool and clean off, right? So I mean, that's kind of low hanging fruit stuff to me. I mean, that should be really easy to fix if you know how to do it. I just don't. I've never used that tool, so I don't really know. What else? Who else do I see? Ryan. So Ryan, I did see that you did some updates to some of the ROMs for the 1510, and I know I was building a few for some folks, and I tried some of those out, and it's kind of weird. Okay, so let me put it this way.
Which ones?
Well, I know the one I remember in my head, I need to go back and actually, you know, flash some chips and try them again. But on the TS1000, right, we're using a TS1000 ROM, I think some of the view calc or the view ones you had, they actually worked. They booted up and they worked, right? Because I think the 1000 does a full initialization, right? And maybe it sets up the basic environment. So when you tell it to randomize user 8192, well, all that's already set up. That's in my mind what I'm thinking is going on here, and then it works. But if you put it on the 1500 or a 1000 with the 1500 ROM, it does not work, because I don't think that environment has been set up yet, right, in the 1500, because it doesn't do all that, right? So either we'd have to put that into the code in the cartridge, right, to reinitialize the whole basic thing, or figure a way around it, you know, so that it works for both.
So you're saying that that may be what I was seeing in the emulator. So I guess the 1500, when it sees the cartridge, it skips all that and jumps straight to the loader.
Right.
And to get some of those programs to work, I made a different, an alternate loader you can choose, which I call a tape loader, which really just loads the P file like a tape. It paves over the system variables and all the memory. But that's very good point is that on the 1500, the reason those other loaders work is because they do white memory and set these variables.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just kind of found that interesting that it worked on the 1000. Right. I
Right.
know. I think you did like, I don't know, 5 or 6 programs. But anyway,
I had some
learned-
that were, I put it in a for testing folder, I think
Right.
is what they were in. Because I wasn't getting, I was seeing what you were seeing. It would work on a 1000 and not a 1500 in the emulator.
Right. Right. So it does that on real hardware. Like I said, I know the view calc one or
Okay.
the view file one or
Those
both of those
two-
worked.
Yeah, so those two would do a checksum on the system variables as their, I don't know if it's their copy protection or a load verification. I don't know what it was. And of course, then the tape like loader would solve that. But yeah, so I may have to have enhance that or have another one where it puts, I don't know what it would be. I guess I'll have to have a hybrid loader that does some of that first loader's init, then go back and do the tape loading.
Yeah.
I'll try that.
mean,
That's what I can try.
That's just, another chapter in this, 1510, how
Bible?
how Timex, I don't think even Timex was fully baked as far as how this was going to work, right? That's why there was no documentation, because there's so many different ways to load programs, as we're finding out now in
Yeah.
40 years later.
Yeah.
And it's like each program that they put onto the cartridge that they were going to make, they had to kind of hand massage it, right, to make sure it worked for both machines. And that's what we're seeing, right? I said ViewCalc doesn't work on the 1500, it doesn't boot it, and then on the 1000, you let the machine come up, randomize user 8192, and hey, it works. Right, so it doesn't
Well,
auto start.
For them, it was
Go ahead.
also much easier because they were working from source.
Well,
Yeah.
probably. I mean, they could probably get the source from those guys, but it was still, it's just an idiosyncrasy, I think, of how that cartridge system was kind of working, right? It wasn't really, it never was designed that way from the get-go, right? So they kind of
Well,
were shoehorning it in there.
It was because that since it hadn't existed, no software was written for it
Mm-hmm.
to be like ROM first. Okay?
Right.
So
Right.
they
So
could
we're
have made
taking all
one
this. Yeah.
that did something like that, but a lot of the games or any program, probably, a lot of them were basic or a combo at least, and they'll need that basic ROM to fall on.
Mhm.
So I think this idea was that, well, hey, we'll just load the software as is back into the original memory locations, and
Yeah.
then they probably imagined that they could make anything work, pretty much.
Well, plus they wanted it to be, probably pretty cost effective, right? They didn't want to waste too much time on it. Time is money, as they say, and that machine was kind of already getting out to pasture by that point.
Yeah.
So the other thing, Ryan, and also Adam, is I do have 1510s for you, and I've been sitting there for a while now, but and I have your 1000, Adam. Obviously, it's got the replacement keyboard on there. Although I did now kind of getting over to Paul, Paul did find 3 1000 overlays or keyboards. So I bought those from him, and he also sent along some EPROMs for me
Yeah, a bunch of EPROMs.
for me to read.
Yeah.
And so I read all of those out. I know I sent it back to Paul, and also, David has a copy of them to see
There's a bunch
what's
of
been archived and what maybe isn't
Wait, so
archived.
there were blank EPROMs that had data? Is that what it was? Or?
Oh no, they were labeled. Like,
Oh.
so there was about I would say
13.
4 or 5
Oh.
versions of the JLO DOS. Yeah. It was pretty cool. And
then there was some QL stuff in there, and there's some different like TS1000 OS ROMs, which obviously were modified. Somebody was saying by Bob Belt or Bob somebody.
Tom Bent.
Tom Bent, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's changed in there, but hey, we've got a backup of it, so we can maybe at some point figure it out, or burn a copy and throw it into a machine and see what happens.
Well, Tom wrote a couple of articles, and
The
then wrote
manual
this.
for that ROM is available on Internet Archive.
Yes,
I found
yes,
it.
yeah. So he wrote this little manual and also included these articles that he had written or other people had written for various newsletters about what that ROM did. One of the things it did was get rid of the memory check. So if you plugged in a large memory module on your 1000, like a 16K or even larger, it would check that memory when you turned it on. So it'd be this long,
Right.
to me, as a 14-year-old kid, it'd be a long delay.
Yeah, it'd take 8 seconds to boot to get to the K, man.
Was it 8 seconds?
I don't know.
That was forever.
Yeah,
you
it
know.
was. You're right.
And so so there was that good time. And then there were some other bugs, some other small bugs that he fixed in the ROM. And he actually went and got permission from Timex, Amstrad. I can't remember exactly who, but he mentions it in his little manual about who he got permission from, to distribute it, which is really cool.
Oh. Well, so I guess those are, they probably were already archived, I would imagine.
Well, so the Paul had sent me Tom's ROM last summer, I think.
Mhm.
And it was up until that point not around. I mean, there was articles that said how you could, do this yourself, but until Paul dug it up and sent it to me, it wasn't available.
Okay.
So
And I
yeah.
know there was some QL ones. Actually, it was on the circuit board, right? And probably Tim knows more about that because it's on a little circuit board with a logic chip on there. So there's some interfacing, I guess, that's going on between that ROM and the where the original ROM and the QL would sit. Or Paul probably knows more about that as well, I'm sure. But it had like a toolkit or something in there that I kind of saw just kind of going through the ROM. ASCII wise, there was some kind of toolkit at the end. Yeah, basically that little board it looks like on the left.
I'm going to spotlight you.
Well,
So don't
yeah.
go anywhere, Paul.
Yeah, the one with the socket on it and the little chip on it. That's basically kind of what Paul sent me. But of course, I had the chip in it,
Okay.
and it plugs into the ROM. Where the ROM goes in the QL.
And you pull out the other one.
Right, yeah, you pull out the other ROM and then you plug this in with the modified ROM, and I guess I see some switches that go to it.
Yeah.
That
So you can
switched out the last 16K for the back port. So you could actually have something on the full size load on the EEPROM. And if you needed to use something plugged in like an ICE cartridge or a different cartridge in the back, you could switch back and forth.
Oh, interesting. What's the one
So
on
you
the
had an
upper right?
external and an internal.
What's the one on the upper right, Paul?
That was a battery backup for the clock.
Okay. And what's that chip? It's a 40-pin chip. Where did you plug that in?
I think that was the 8301, but I won't swear to it until I crack my case.
Okay. So like the keyboard chip, probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why I have a snot full of machine pins, because the way these boards are constructed.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the machine pins usually ruin regular sockets.
Yep.
Unless you have machine pins on the other receiving end, then of course it works. But yeah, most of these things use these cheaper sockets, and you push those machine pins in there once, and it spreads them out, and then they're you can't put another chip back in there.
Well, those we didn't have a problem with because we'll only use the pins to plug into the motherboard socket.
Oh, okay. And I know Paul was mentioning he had some more EEPROMs that, but I think you sent them to somebody else, right? And you haven't heard back from him yet, or?
Eurus.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know who that is, but.
Guy in Switzerland.
Oh, well, good luck with that.
Well, if he can mail me the code files, that'll work.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's true.
'Cause I mean, I guess you sent them to him with the same intent, right? Is for him to dump them and send you the contents
Correct.
of the dumps and probably send you back the EPROMs too. I assume you got them back, right?
No.
No, I mean for me.
Oh,
From
yes,
the
I
ones,
did.
yeah, from the ones I sent you back because it said you got them, but
I'm pretty sure he's got the Minerva with the Toolkit 2 EEPROM copy that I used as a master.
Cool.
okay. And then who else was it? So we got Johnny Red. I see Johnny Red's on, and I know he got a 1510 from me. I guess at once it actually got through.
Oh wow.
I guess it had to go through. You know, I mean, he's in Portugal, so it's kind of
Yeah.
like, why does it got to go to Europe and then come to port? I don't understand that, but I would think it would maybe go through Mexico or Guam or I don't know.
It went
But
through
anyway,
somewhere in Northern Europe.
yeah, I think it went
Uh,
through Switzerland, right? Is
I
that
was
right?
trying to avoid the Portuguese customs.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I see. Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Portugal
So-
subcontracted out their CIA division.
Yeah, so that's
Oh.
kind of, I guess that's right. I remember you were, send it this way. And yeah, it kind of went through, it went over to Europe and then down to you, but it went through Switzerland when it should have gone through maybe Germany. Is that?
Usually things go through the Netherlands.
Oh.
Since Brexit, things usually go through Netherlands
Huh.
because before Brexit they were going to the UK
Okay.
and customs
I
were
guess-
cheaper.
And I guess this time it went through Switzerland, so you had to still end up
I
paying
don't know
some.
why, yet still I had to pay customs even Switzerland is in Schengen space.
Right.
How long did it take to get it?
Yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think almost a month.
Oh,
Wow.
that's
Was
not
it that
too
long?
bad.
I thought it was a week and a
That's not
half,
bad.
2 weeks maybe. I
No,
have to
no, no.
look back.
It took longer.
Okay.
Before Brexit, things would take like 15 days.
Yeah, because I know we
Because
sent
things would
it
go to the
through.
UK and then get distributed. They'd go into
Uh,
Heathrow.
Yes, it
Okay.
would it would go to London and then to Portugal.
Oh. Wow. Boy, they really
And
messed
it
stuff up.
it took only 15 days. Now it's always a month.
Okay.
Mm.
But
Mm.
the other thing, because I think I kind of lost visibility of it because we kind of did it like an eBay thing. We kind of set up a
Yes.
Fox eBay auction, and so it went through eBay's global shipping program, right?
Yes.
And once it goes through, it gets to wherever the distribution center is here,
Yeah.
right? And then they relabel it and package it to send out abroad. I don't think I could track it at that point. I think I saw that it did go to Switzerland, but I was like, I don't know any different. You know, why would it go to Switzerland? But hey, I guess logistics is logistics, you know. But yeah, I
Since
don't.
Brexit, things are worse
Wow.
because it was fully trackable. You would know when it arrived to London, when it exited London,
Mhm.
and with how it works now, you simply don't know where it is.
Right, right. But speaking of that, so now that you know you got it, and then I know you sent me a big thing where you were trying it on you didn't seem to have a machine that was together enough to actually try
Yeah,
it on.
I don't use my 1000 or 1500 that much. So last time I used them, they are working. They were working, and now they are not.
Oh. Oh, that's heartbreaking.
And I've been in the Lord ZX Museum last weekend, or like yesterday for you. For me, it's already a day.
Um,
But I didn't have time to test it. I took it with me, but I didn't have the time. We
okay.
had an event called Synergy, made with people from Demo Scene, and
Okay. I saw that there was a lot of activity going on the Facebook page. You
Yeah,
guys looked really busy.
yeah. So I didn't have time to test it, sadly.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe
Well, that's no problem.
I do. We will return to the museum at the end of the month because there's gonna be another event called Street Gaming, but it's not Spectrum related. It's more like a gaming event with lots of retro machines. And I do hope to have some time to
Okay, cool.
test it again.
Yeah, I just kind of was curious if you did get a chance to actually try it on something that worked, and it worked for you. But
Yeah.
I
Well,
guess
main
like David,
problem is that João had all the 1500s in a bag that because he filmed them with David,
Yeah.
used them to film with David, and I don't know where they are. And there was no time to search for them.
okay,
They are in the museum somewhere.
Yeah.
good. Well, hopefully, I'm sure it'll work. I don't see why it wouldn't. But same
Well,
thing with David. David hasn't
if
tried
you
his yet.
test them, it
Yeah.
should work.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's kind of another thing. I do test them before I ship them. I mean, I don't think I go through every permutation because I didn't think until Ryan gave me these new things to kind of try, and I saw that it works on the 1000, but it doesn't work on the 1500. Then I was like, oh, well, I hadn't
Fun.
tested everything
Yeah.
else previous to that on a 1000. It was always just on the the 1000 with the 1500 ROM in it. So basically, it's a 1500, right? So,
Yeah.
but I don't think any of those have a problem either way. It's just these newer ones that Ryan's been working on. He's been having problems getting them to work in the emulator. Because that's the other thing is why I made them 1510 so they could actually have them, and Ryan could try it himself. Although I don't think Ryan has a programmer, which is not good because you can't test it if you can't program the flash chip, right? But
I have one,
Uh,
so he can just come
But-
down the street and use it.
Yeah, but you testing them on the real hardware confirms the emulator seems to be faithful. So
yeah,
that's
yeah. If you tried it on a 1000 without, on a 1000 emulation and it worked, and then you tried it on the 1500 emulation and it didn't work, well, that's what I'm seeing on real hardware as well.
yeah.
I think some of the other
So
programs you had just didn't work either way. So there's no more work that needs to be done on that. But I need to go back and reflash those and try them out and and make notes and I'll send those to you. Which ones did or didn't work.
Carl, can I interrupt you because I want to recognize something that Keith sent. Keith is showing up as Google Pixel tablet today.
Yeah.
But quite a long time ago, Jack Doheny wrote this program, adapted a program from your computer, I think, to allow you to type in on your 2068 to type in keywords like you would do on another computer. So instead of P to do print, you would type in the word print. I guess this was for masochists who enjoy typing in keywords. So let me just share the screen because I have some screen captures on this page. So here's a couple screen captures of this program that that Jack wrote, and it's just the basic listing portion of it right here. And then what Keith just sent over was, can I do a new share? I can. I'm just looking for the listing. He sent me the assembly language listing of the program itself. I'm just trying to bring it forward to the front. Okay, let's try.
Keith, where did you run across that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to know too. Is how did you dig? Where did you dig this up from?
Jack sent it to me.
Did he? Okay, so a long time ago.
Yeah, quite a long time ago. He sent it.
I
Okay.
remember
He sent me
this
a
was
lot.
published somewhere.
The listing.
Yeah, it was published somewhere.
Okay.
Detokenized.
Yeah. Here it is. Okay.
I didn't hear all of that.
So, yeah, this is 8 pages worth of machine code on how to, kind of just hijack the data entry system of the 2068, and it injects the code into stream number -3, which, if I recall correctly, is the keyboard. One of the crazy cool things about the ZX Spectrum and the 2068 is that it introduced streams, and these were ways to get information into and out of the computer.
Mm.
Very, very cool. So, in addition to just scanning the keyboard itself, right?
I do want to point out something about that. That isn't just the assembly source. That's actually the listing. So you get additional details there.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
So I'm gonna be
Yeah.
attaching it to that page and uploading it.
Be interesting to make a like an AROS cartridge of that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You could make a cartridge and plug it in, and there you go.
Yeah, I wonder. Well, I mean, that piece of code sits in. Let me see, where does that sit in? Because there's a comment about it sits in a specific location. Oh no, it's up in high RAM 6500. Okay, so it sits on the top of. Yeah, I mean, you could write a little program that runs off of the cartridge that copies it into the top of
Right.
memory. Yeah.
So you're not really, using it as a cartridge, but the cartridge will boot, copy the code up there, and then it goes back to the interpreter.
The little loader. Yeah.
Right.
Not unlike the 1510 cartridge.
Exactly.
I see what you did there, Carl.
Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of that kind of brings up the contrast, right, to the development work that went into the 2068's cartridge system. There's a ton of work there and documentation that we have because that was something that they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Right. And they since it was the beginning of that product or the cartridge system, they could define what they wanted. Whereas the 1000, right, that was already there. The 1000 machines have been out for several years at that point. So they were kind of just, like I said, shoehorning this thing in to work with the 1000, but you had all this cassette software that was already out there that you had to convert to a cartridge.
This reminds me. Okay, so who here has read what's his name? Shoot. He's the Canadian author, William Gibson. Any William Gibson books? William Gibson wrote
Neuromancer.
Neuromancer, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Burning Chrome and things.
Burning Chrome, right? All of those
Overdrive, all those
seminal cyberpunk novels from the mid 80s.
Early 80s, yeah. Early to mid 80s.
So anyway, he wrote a book called Pattern Recognition that came out in 2003. And as with most of his novels, it's kind of out there in terms of the premise and what's going on. And I think if I recall correctly, in Pattern Recognition, it's about this this person who, in essence, goes around the world looking for what is the most current, bleeding edge of, say, fashion or something like that, right? Anyway, I was reminded because I have a Google search thing that runs and tells me when something new comes up. on the interwebs that mentions the Timex, and what it told me today was a passage that I had forgotten that I had even read, that, you know, back when I read pattern recognition, and it's a passage about the 1000 and about the difference, in essence, between how the 81 was received in England and how it was received in the US, right? And so in this little passage, there's this person explaining, this person named Wojtek is explaining to the main character, you know, what happened with the 1000, saying, you know, there was less than $100. The part that I like, there's a couple parts that are funny here. So Sinclair had a way of getting things right, but also exactly wrong. You know, foreseeing the market for affordable computers, Sinclair decided that what people want to do with them was to learn programming. So they came out with the ZX81 in the US, in the UK, and the Timex 1000 in the US. But it required the user to key in programs, tapping away on that little motel keyboard sticker. Right. So this resulted in both the short market life of the product and the relative preponderance of skilled programmers in the UK, that they were, you know, fine with it. But so the main character says, but if Timex sold it in the United States, why didn't we get the programmers? And says, you have programmers, but America is different. America wanted Nintendo. Nintendo gives you no programmers. Also, on launch in America, RAM expansion unit did not ship for 3 months. People buy computer, take it home, discovers almost nothing. A disaster.
And none of that is true.
All of it, right? Exactly. All of it is true. But
The
it was so,
X81 ZX81 launched in 81, Nintendo launched in 85.
okay.
That's, you know, so that's a big difference. Then you said also about the memory expansion had to wait 3 months. No, you could buy the memory as soon as the ZX81 was available.
From Sinclair.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm sure it was that way when the 1000 hit the market. I don't
But
think there's a 3-month wait at all.
you don't think that there was a delay between the 1000 and the 16K RAM? Or
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, they were already available. It's just a rebuild of the ZX81 RAM, so nothing had to do.
that's true. That's true. Just relabel.
Well,
I do remember reading in the magazines, but I was not there at the time, like reading some back issues that there was a delay, but I don't freaking know.
Well,
Yeah,
hey,
there was,
remember,
like anecdotally.
remember,
No.
guys, it had to get FCC approval,
That's it.
right?
Yeah.
Because on the
No.
TS1, on the
It
1610,
did.
on the 1016, it's got an FCC sticker on the back. Well, not
Yeah.
a sticker, it's actually silk screened on the case. And then, of course, on the front, they made it, they made the little rectangular thing for the Timex Sinclair 1016 label,
Yeah.
right? It didn't have the ZX81 gram pack or whatever. So there's
but
some
the-
changes there.
But
Yeah,
the
exactly.
ZX81 RAM
Not
pack
that.
had everything for that sold in the US had to have FCC approval. ZX81, ZX81 RAM pack had to have FCC approval.
Hey guys,
Yeah, so you see that where's the FCC ID on there? Well, model number. So and it has
Oh, hang
Sinclair
on. I'm sorry.
molded.
Brian's holding
Is it-
something up.
Yeah, and it has
Hang on,
Sinclair molded into the plastic, right? It has Sinclair made in England molded into well, on a 1016 you have none of that, and the FCC label is different. I think you actually have an FCC ID number from
Well,
them.
In
But
this
anyway,
case- in this case, you
point
have
was-
missing the number.
the
of the
81, as he was saying, the 81 was sold with US specs and approval
right.
by Sinclair
Yes.
before the 1000. That happened.
Yeah.
I have one.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. And so there was nothing that had to be done. Probably what happened is that the rebadging of things, because you went and changed something,
Yeah,
probably
that's-
caused they had to build up inventory of things labeled 1016 and get them all to the distributors.
Well, don't forget the
probably.
box. You know, the box had to change. They made so Timex instead of Sinclair.
There were
And
at
I've got-
least 3
And I
different
got the box
issues.
too.
Yeah, I've got a 1016 here. Actually, the label's gone on it. I have to probably make one, but I'll show you the back of it.
I got
Yeah,
that too.
Yeah, that's got
exactly,
the
yeah.
ID, the product ID. on
Yeah,
it.
that has the product ID.
Yeah.
Now maybe the rules changed or something, but you know, Sinclair was selling these right up to the last minute.
Right,
That's
right. But yeah, and then on the front, like you said, you know, you've got the, you know, mine doesn't have the label there, but you know, it's got the rectangular cutout. And then also on the bottom, it has, you know, a lot of the
Oh, hang on,
Timex
Carl.
ones had the,
Okay,
yeah,
go.
a lot of the Timex ones, like trying
Yeah.
to get that, had these stickers even on the computers, right? They had these kind of metallic stickers for the serial numbers and the models, and you know, you don't, you know, like I said, yeah, you've got so it's a different back, you know, that's a silk screen on it, and like I said, it doesn't have the Sinclair. There's no Sinclair on here anywhere. But
so my guess is all that, you know, the new stickers, the new badging, the slightly new molding, all that's probably what the delay was.
yeah, probably. And then making boxes, you know, for the retail shelf, you know, the boxes that it went into.
Yeah.
But also the point is that the 81 was a follow-on to the 80. The 80 came out first as a learning computer in 1980 in England. So what was that? February, March, early 80.
Yeah.
And the Timex 1000 did not sell in the States till the fall of 82.
Yeah.
That was a while after that. So the original computer, I mean, you could have probably argued that the 81 probably needed more changes than it had over the 80. But, you know, the 80 was made in the time of, okay, people want to learn about computers and maybe not spend a lot of money doing that. And then it was the market that just misperceived, well, especially in the States, right? So when they sold it here with the idea that it was going to be educational, the market basically was like, we don't want to learn about computers. We just want to play video games. And you've given us a thing that doesn't play video games.
Right.
It
That's
has
why the
no
Commodore
color, no
64
sound.
was so popular. Commodore 64 had a bunch of games, and it sold to teenagers more so than adults.
And the VIC
Yeah,
20
you know,
before it, Tim. Yeah,
right.
the
The
VIC 20
VIC
was real
20 was
popular.
really, but you know, you have to even go back further than that, right? The Atari 800, right? The Atari 800 came out in 79. Granted, you know, all these things were way expensive, but I don't think a lot of people bought the 800 necessarily to learn programming on it. They bought it because you could play games on it. You know, it had the cartridge slots already.
Well, that's what the 400 especially was about.
Especially.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I think, you know, that kind of set the precedent, at least I think here in the United States, that these home computers were really just more advanced game machines, right? And so you have the ZX81 come out, and that's not really, yeah, there were games for it, but that's not really, I kind of remember when I bought mine, I didn't really necessarily were buying it to play games on it. I definitely remember buying it because I wanted to learn, you know, how to program, you know, basic, at least at that point, and then machine code later. But you know, that was a differentiation, I think, in the cost for one thing, and the other thing was it really wasn't meant to be a games machine, right? As opposed to most of the other home computers at that time, right? Even the Apple II, come on, I mean, had tons of games for the Apple II.
Yeah, and I bet your friends, you're programming on your Sinclair, and your friends are telling their parents, "Yeah, I'm going to learn programming," and then they didn't do it.
Right. Yeah. So the Sinclair Timex people were that one's probably really until you got to the Spectrum, because then there was a shit ton of games for that thing, and so I don't know that people learned. I'm sure they learned on that one as well, but I mean, it just, you know, it wasn't what it was really meant for, right? The 1000, the ZX80 were kind of meant to learn how to program.
Well, and that's what Danny Ross, you know, really emphasized was that these were meant to be learning machines. You know, that, you know, that was really, really his thing. And he was pretty convinced of it. You know, he thought that he could sell, you know, sell them to, you know, schools to build labs and stuff. And certainly, I think some schools did do that. You know, I've heard stories.
It just seemed like the focus wasn't, and the marketing wasn't on. Certainly, they had educational software. That's learning, but the machine was made for learning about computers.
Yeah, that was definitely Sinclair's goal.
You know, sure, you got states and capitals. You can learn about states and capitals without a computer.
Well, it kind of even goes back to the manuals for these things. They were really written for you to learn how to program, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the 1000 manual and especially the 2068's manual, right? That thing's really goes through, you know, sound, graphics, all that, you know, it kind of teaches you how to use all these things on the machine.
I think that was typical though of like the Atari 8-bit, the Commodore 64, the VIC-20. All those manuals did that.
Did
Pretty
they?
good too. Oh yeah.
To that point, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I have those machines, but I think the 600 I got has the manual.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't know that it does. But anyway,
and you could easily like with both the Atari and the Commodore 64, like you could easily right away get the programmer's reference manual, which gave you everything. Like, and it was, you know, and it was meant to go along with the user manual.
But
in
I think again,
in the box, you've got the address lines laid out. I mean, come on.
I think though, Adam, you know.
Well, I'm just gonna say this is for the Astrocade here, and this is, you know, they have the same thing in the Astrocade book, and so this is just a game console. So I mean, it was pretty typical at the time.
But I think, you know, the point I'm trying to make is those machines were marketed as game machines, as opposed to necessarily learning how to program computers. Although that you could certainly do that with them, right? But I think, you know, with the 2600 coming out, because I actually bought, you know, a lot of the books from that author that you lent me, that the 800s manual. He actually has a second edition of the 800 Atari history. But anyway, yeah, you can kind of tell because he's got a 2600 book. He's got a Mattel and Television book.
You're talking about the book Breakout? Is that the one I like?
Right, exactly. So I bought like 5 of his books.
Wow.
Because they're
you'll
all
have to
kind
lend
of,
them to me.
Yeah, because they're all kind of, but you know, you can tell when the 2600 came out, right, that was a games console. It never really was. You couldn't even program on it. There was no way to do that. But you know, I think that kind of set the precedent, at least here in the States, right, in the U.S., that like when the Atari 400 came out, the Atari 800 came out, you know, those were more gaming machines, but they were just more advanced. Right, and because he kind of talks about that in the book, where people were looking at those machines, and even himself, being a kid at that time, was looking at the Atari 400 or 800 as a console, as a gaming console with a keyboard. Right, just a more advanced 2600. It wasn't really thought of as a computer to him, just more, you know. In fact, I think he talks about, or somebody talked about, buying a cartridge. Maybe it's a Retrofractic he's got a YouTube channel, but he bought a cartridge, right, and it's for an Atari, but it was for the 2600 when he had the computer, and it wouldn't fit. The cartridges are different.
Yeah.
But it didn't really say that on the box, right? He just kind of bought, it's an Atari cartridge. He just thought it would fit into his computer, the, you know, 400 or 800, whatever he had, and it didn't. So, you know, but that's kind of my point. The ZX81 and TS 1000s, I don't think anybody would ever say that those were a gaming console machine.
That's true.
Right? That's just not what they were really meant for.
I bet you there was quite a lot of households where the parents said, hey, I can get our kid a computer for very cheap for him to learn about how to program. And then the kid gets the computer and he goes, oh, and puts that in the drawer because it can't play games.
Right. I'm sure there is that side of the coin as well, right?
So I actually had a very short job at a software store in summer of '82. A father came in, wanted me to teach his kid, about a 10 or 12-year-old, how to program. And so I schlepped up to this guy's house, trying to teach the kid how to use Apple II and everything. And the kid was like, screw it, I want to go outside and play baseball. So I asked the father, why'd you spend $1,200 on a computer your son has no interest in? Because that was what was advertised. But did you look at others? All the ads showed Apple too, so I'm going to buy an Apple too. So yeah, there were some dumb parents out there.
Well,
I wouldn't call them dumb, but
that's
Well,
also
if you're gonna buy the first car for your kid and he might trash it, you're not gonna buy him a Maserati. You're gonna go buy the cheapest thing and buy, so if your kid is, you're not sure if your kid's gonna be interested in computers, don't buy the most expensive one out there. Then
Right.
realize he has no interest whatsoever.
True.
I'll
But
see
that's
Jay's
also
comments.
one of yeah,
Just-
but that's also it sounds like his parents had more money than sense at that, so to speak.
Could be.
But most of us weren't that way, right?
Well, the parents had hardly no experience with computers themselves.
Right.
So they didn't know any better anyway.
Well, but still, you could probably get a VIC-20 for half or even more than what an Apple II cost, right? But
the
that's
VIC-20 was $299.
$400. Yeah, but you have to buy the cassette tape, so it was about $400 out the door because you couldn't use it without their cassette player.
That's true.
Again,
right.
1980, early 1981, late 81. I researched them all. I had a friend had the Vic, friend had a Tandy. I had the Timex. I knew what the prices were at the time I was looking. Tandy was $600 out the door. Vic was $400 with the cassette. The Tandy you could use any cassette player, and the the ZX81 $250. Big difference.
Did you consider the APF Imagination Machine?
Me?
No, Tim.
Oh
no! So I went to Computerland in Hayward, their first store, and the Byte Shop in Hayward. We went to the Byte. So my friend Doug and I went to the Byte Shop. Hey, what's their cheapest computer? Apple II, $1,200. Thanks.
Yeah.
Went to the Byte Computerland. They steered us toward the VIC-20. I was looking into. Okay, I might can afford that. Friend Doug went to Radio Shack and they convinced him to buy the Coco one. Then I saw an ad for the ZX81 and it said $250. That's a hell of a lot cheaper than these other ones. And 16K in memory, whereas I think the Coco had 16K, but the VIC did not yet 5K, 3K.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Didn't care about sound, didn't care about color, wasn't interested in gaming. I just want to learn how to code. So the ZX81 is perfect.
Yeah.
And it was that. And I no one was going to buy me a computer. I had to save up my own money to buy it.
Well, that was the thing, was that we couldn't afford much at all, and so that was the answer. Was, even waiting for the price to drop to $100.
Yeah, most of us didn't have rich parents.
Day one. Luckily, I had a part-time job at the time I could afford that. I do remember my stepfather seeing the ZX81 with a memory and going, "You paid $250 for that?" It was rather small.
Yeah. When the 1000 came out, I got one because I expressly asked for it, and because it was $100 and stuff. And so I was.
Keith is going.
Oh, by Keith.
Oh, I just wanted to correct something about that keyword program. It's not relocatable and it doesn't run from the high memory. It runs from low memory, and it's not compatible with Hot Z arrows because it uses some of the same locations.
Oh, okay.
I remember him telling me that, and I'm just looking at the code. The code, it's located at 23,885 decimal.
Okay.
The assembler creates it up at that address and then relocates it to where it belongs.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Okay.
But, I think still we could write our own relocation code in the cartridge, and then the cartridge just gets out of the way, once it's done.
You might be able to do that. He allowed me to put it in the emulator for the Waravo emulator when I was working on a Timex 2068 version, and it was located in the dock bank. However, when it was executed. It was taken out of the dock bank and put into its normal location. I did not rewrite the location code.
Oh,
As
wow.
written there, it's not relocatable.
Wow. Wow.
But as
Yeah.
David said, you know, using the keywords is just as good. I think most people, even I'm used to it. So
Yeah, I don't.
Well, what was that memory address again?
23885.
885. Okay.
Yeah, so it copies it.
There was a utility somebody wrote to detokenize 2068 listings so they could be migrated into the QL.
Oh, really? Huh.
And I don't know, Tim, if you, because you put in the, yeah, I know a lot of the 26.8s I have the sticker on them. Yeah, just say made in Korea. Even the PCBs are made in Korea. It says right on the PCB silk screen that they were made in Korea.
Yeah.
And it might have been Samsung. I'm not too sure.
Who manufactured them?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, to me, that's odd because, you know, Timex had all of these factories, and that's how they got into this in the first place, by manufacturing the 81 for Sinclair, and then manufacturing the Spectrum for Sinclair.
Did maybe I don't know. Did Timex have factories in Korea? They might have. Might have been.
I don't
them.
know. I don't think so. Well, and
It's a big unknown.
yeah.
If Korea made the PCB, who made the computer? Put in the box, put the memory because are in sockets. Who tests if the computer turn on? Where?
I'm gonna guess from the factory in Korea.
Yeah, that'd be my guess too.
Yeah, because
Wow.
I think that even on the sticker, you know, on the bottom of the 26.8, it says made in Korea, along on most of the ones that I have. I think there are some other ones made somewhere else, maybe, but, or maybe that's just my mind flaking out there, but I'm pretty sure they were made in Korea.
Yeah.
The whole machine.
And in US receive only the box with the computer inside.
In the
Right.
US?
We would get the whole, yeah, we would
The
get
whole
the
shooting match?
cardboard
Yeah.
box. Yeah.
Yeah. Cardboard, styrofoam, booklet.
Okay. Just only distribution the boxes.
Yeah, I do notice on the boxes that I have for the ones for Portugal, like the Timex computer ones, they're just like a sleeve, right? The 2068 for America.
Box says made in Korea.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, see, our US boxes are cardboard. And they have flaps on the ends, right, where the styrofoam goes into. The ones I've gotten from Portugal, it's just like a paper sleeve. It has the same kind of printing on it like the box does for the 2068 for the US.
The white box philosophy.
Yeah, but it's
if the PCB was made in Korea, the boxes are made in Korea. The rest of the computer is packaging in Korea. I think
probably
that Korea built the computer, not US. Maybe US developed the computer, but not create the computer.
Right,
No.
they were obviously assembled in Korea, probably.
You're talking about boxes like these, Kyle?
No, that one still has flaps, but it's very similar to the thickness.
Oh,
yeah. See, there was no flaps.
It was a sleeve.
Right,
Okay.
there was no flaps on the ones for Portugal. It just kind of the styrofoam just slid inside the sleeve, and yeah, there was no flaps or anything that keeps the. I don't know how they came originally. Maybe they were shrink wrapped, so that the styrofoam wouldn't slide out of the sleeve. I don't know, but you know, I don't think I'll ever be able to buy a brand new one still you know.
And also the transformer. I remember, say VDE made in Korea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wouldn't be unusual for a product to be, and this is the case now, the product to be designed fully in the United States, and then you know, subcontracted out to another vendor for all of the assembly, for all the parts, just because it, you know, it'd be incredibly cheap to have it done in Korea versus anywhere else.
Like Apple. Apple was designed in US but created in China.
Right.
And
a lot of later Timex stuff obviously it says made in Portugal. I think the 1510 cartridge adapter, the real one, is made in Portugal. it says made in Portugal. So they
Oh.
were probably using the Portugal plants to make those there at that time. But the 26H is just an oddity with the Korea. I don't think even the 1000s were made in Korea, right? I mean, I think the PCBs were.
Mostly.
I know I have that one from Italy. Remember, we had the
Yep.
issue 3, but it actually says Timex Sinclair 1000 on the silk screen, so that's kind of an oddity. But most of the other ones, they were made, I don't know, in the UK or wherever the
Yeah.
red, the red silk
Red
screen.
board. Yeah.
Yeah, the red silk screens. I think those were made in the UK or maybe made in Portugal. I don't know where it doesn't say where they were made, but
Hey,
somebody
David,
mentioned
we're
it.
down to just a couple more minutes. Do we want to wrap
I was
anything up?
just bringing up the calendar.
All right.
Your timing is impeccable. Yeah. Our next meeting is on Sunday, May 19th, 2 p.m. Eastern, whatever it is that we are now. So, if you are not in the same time zone as me, good luck.
Figure it out.
Right. I can't even figure out, what time we're at.
You need a world clock.
I need a clock. Yes, I need a big old clock on the wall to tell me. Yeah.
We could just go to UTC for a global group.
UTC. Okay. All right. I'll do that. Make it harder on everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, Jay, that's a good point. I can't remember where NEC made those SCLD chips. I don't have a memory. I don't have a screen, a picture in my mind of the top of the the SCLD chip. They weren't made here. I think they were made. They weren't made in China either back then. I don't know, but they were made somewhere overseas.
Yeah, I think you're correct. Carl.
But if the picture, remember the Paul's picture for the SCLD with the beginning this meeting?
Philippines.
Yes, on the
Philippines, yeah.
On the back, yes, that's correct. But in the front, say USA.
Yeah.
Well, copyright, yeah, USA. But I know because I worked at Intel too. But they got a lot of semiconductor assembly places in Philippines. A lot of our chips were assembled in the Philippines, even though we made them here, right here at this plant here. But they shipped them off to the Philippines to get cut up, tested, and then packaged. All the packaging.
I did not know that, Carl.
They do the silicon rather. They do the silicon in New Mexico,
right, or
and then
California, right,
or whatever,
and then
and send over the platters. I don't remember what they're called.
The wafers.
Wafers. Thank you. To the Philippines, where they'd be sliced and diced and
or Malaysia. There was Malaysia had a lot of assembly places too.
Wow.
I mean, you'll see that on a lot of even just regular TTL chips and things like that. Malaysia, made in Malaysia or made in the Philippines, but that's kind of where the assembly places were. We really didn't have assembly places in the U.S. because I think it was just not cost effective. Right, it would just be too much labor. I don't know. It was cheaper labor there. But yeah, we made them here. We made the wafers here, but then they'd get shipped out. They would test them, and then they'd cut them up. Get the dies cut out, and then put them into the packaging.
Wow,
that's so funny because Rio Rancho, where Carl lives, is known like for making the chips, and they have a huge plant there for Intel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I did not realize they didn't finish the chips there.
We don't. Well, eventually, I know we did get some assembly places here because I think they have one. They built one in the old Fab 7 place where they actually assemble them. But back then, in the 80s, no, they were all assembled overseas.
Put them on a ship.
Didn't do that. Yeah.
Wow.
Now the substrate I'm showing now, that was U.S. made, but those are individual chips. The little black dots are all individual chips.
Yeah.
And that's a large scale microchip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I would
actually in use.
Yeah, I would say that even, TI, National Semiconductor, all of the US, most of the semiconductors were made here back then, but they were assembled overseas.
And I do want to say something, that chip is obviously a large scale because it's bigger than your head.
Well, it was about 3 by 4 inches.
Wow, that's huge.
And
I-
Carl,
Mounted on a metal card.
I thinking of the shipping cost because you need to pass all the production from one continent to another.
and back.
That's
Yeah,
really crazy.
it is
Yeah.
crazy. But you know what, Carl? I'm thinking you mentioned the TI chips, and I know that one of the things that I have noticed about the TI's 99 series, you know, the 9900,
Mhm.
the CPU, the 9918, you know, all of those chips, almost all of them say Philippines on the
Right.
front of them. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, I
So
know
they
that
weren't they weren't actually they weren't actually made in the Philippines, but they were certainly
assembled.
tested and put into the packaging in the
Wow.
Philippines. Right.
Wow.
Except the customers.
The customers.
Yes, the customers are in US or in
Yeah,
America.
so they'd ship it there and then ship it back to us.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
but
Exactly.
but remember, they're shipping stuff in in large containers at
True.
a time. So
Very true.
shipping cost wasn't. I mean, obviously, it made economic sense.
Yeah.
And plus TI, in TI's case, they were assembling the calculator bodies over there too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there
A lot
was
of- lot of-
period time when they were the U.S. marketing and manufacturing. The actual creation of the chips was a trade secret,
Right.
Yes. Yes.
and that's why they shipped the substrates with the chips on it overseas for breakdown and encapsulation.
hmm
Hmm.
Yeah, that was back when the
Making of it,
U.S.
the
was
layering and the gasification,
Right.
and all that was trade secret.
right. That's why back then the U.S. was the number one semiconductor manufacturers in the world. But now that's TMSC and you got all these foundries, what they call foundries now, right?
All
Which
over
are just basically just anybody can. Hey, I got a chip design. I would need you to make it, right? We really didn't have that back then. Like a foundry,
Yeah.
an idea of a chip foundry.
And you didn't have the economy for it.
Right. But I mean, they made all kinds of fucking chips back then. I mean, just think about, all these little fabs, man. I mean, but now, there's, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like semiconductors are made that way. But then with the CHIPS Act now, right, that Biden passed,
Gonna try to
I
bring it
know
back.
Intel's making a big investment in Chandler, right, in Phoenix. They
Yeah.
have a bunch of plants in Phoenix even back then. I think they're doing something here as well in New Mexico, but we just have the one plant here. They've probably got like 6, 7, 8, 10 plants in Phoenix, through various places in Phoenix. So, but anyway, that's, yeah.
Carl, I can see by your watch that we're over time.
Oh, yeah.
I can. As usual, this went places that I did not even imagine, which is so much fun. All right, gentlemen. See you in 2 weeks. Bring your wide ranging, discussions.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Have a good one.